The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michela Barnett Ellis.
Good morning. Madam President, as always, it is a pleasure to rise in this honorable place to raise the concerns of the citizens and residents of this beautiful country. Those of us that are working hard to feed our family, trying to make $1 out of the 15 cents that may be left after we go to the food store and pay these consistently increasing electricity bills. I offer my contribution on the amendment to the Exempted Limited Partnership Act and the amendment to the International Business Companies Act. These amendments are meant to ensure that an exempt limited partnership cannot abandon their liabilities, debts, and obligations by moving to another jurisdiction or converting to an IBC. This bill is also intended to, the IBC Act, the amendment to the IBC Act is also intended to clean up the IBC Act by removing the provisions in the IBC Act that relate to the appointment of official liquidators and the powers of the court to wind up an IBC. Because on the 30th of December 2011, the provisions in the Companies Act with relation to winding up companies now also apply to IBC Acts, and so there was no need to have them duplicated in the IBC Act. But in this place, when we debated the Law Reform and Revision Bill as it then was, and even in the recent debate on the budget, we talked about the need for law reform and revision. And this includes the need to routinely publish acts, which consolidate the amendments that have been made to an act in the preceding years. This was in fact the justification the Attorney General gave for repealing and replacing the Business License Act during the budget debate. In preparation for today's contribution, I examined the IBC Act and its amendments. This present bill seeks to remove sections of the Act that were actually removed 13 years ago, almost 13 years ago. Section 3 of the IBC Amendment Bill repeals Section 91 to 130. Section 4 of the IBC Amendment Bill repeals Section 137. And Section 5 of the IBC Bill repeals Sections 142 to 163. But when we look at the IBC Winding Up Amendment Act 2011, which was assented on the 30th of December 2011, and we look at Section 2 of that act, it reads, Sections 89 to 130, 37, and 42 to 63 of the Principal Act are repealed and replaced with the following. And they repealed and replaced it with the new Section 89, which, as I said earlier, provided that the winding up rules that had recently been passed in 2011 not only apply to companies, but apply to IBCs. Laws, legislation governs almost everything we do in life. And it is imperative that in the process of revising and reviewing laws, that they are done with precision. I trust that when this bill gets to the committee stage, the government will remove Sections 3, 4, and 5 of this bill because they are unnecessary. Senator Griffin said that they're walking and chewing gum at the same time. That is all fine and good as long as you don't stumble and fall. These amendments, or choke, worse. These amendments have limited impact on persons outside of the financial services sector. Exempted limited partnerships and IBCs cannot conduct business in the Bahamas. Their functions are limited to those activities necessary to administer those entities. We have more pressing issues that we need this administration to deal with. There's a story that while the city of Rome burned for 6 days in 64 AD, that its then Emperor Nero did nothing to help the citizens of Rome. Hence the saying, Nero fiddles while Rome burns. In 2023, many Bahamians are at the brink of crisis, and this administration is fiddling around. BPL is struggling to meet its supply-demand. It is hot as Hades. Heat advisories are issued weekly. There's load shedding in Eleuthera, load shedding in New Providence, and load shedding in North Andros. Why aren't we debating legislation or passing a resolution to address our supply shortage? Perhaps a solar installation encouragement bill. Why is the government ignoring the elephant in the room, which is this heat is going to get worse? Summers will continue to get hotter as the climate is adversely impacted by pollution. Selling carbon credits may plump government revenue, but it will not repair the ozone layer or reverse climate change. We need to be more aggressive in our pursuit of sustainable development. There's also the cost of electricity. It's there in dollars and cents. The fuel charge is high. It was lower when we hedged fuel prices. This administration can paint it, twist it, spin it as much as they want. We had lower BPL bills under the hedge scheme. They decided not to continue the hedge scheme, and our fuel costs are higher. And according to BPL, they will be higher until next year. We knew that this administration knew that Bahamians were concerned about the cost of electricity. That's why it is promised in the Blueprint for Change that they would address and come up with a plan to reduce electricity costs in the first 100 days. It is now 668 days later, and the PLP is still fiddling. We have an immigration crisis and a crime crisis, but these crises...
Senator Michela Barnett Ellis, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I am giving you a minute to please come back to relevance of this bill that we're debating today. Earlier, I made a statement with respect to relevance, which I intend to strictly enforce. We are debating the International Business Company Amendment Bill, and I would appreciate it very much if you would stick to the relevance of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. My response to that would be that we are here to discuss matters that are relevant to the Bahamian people, and we have a constitutional duty to make laws for the peace and good governance of the Bahamas, and therefore we also have a constitutional duty to raise matters of concern.
Yes, you can in fact raise matters of concern. I have no objection to do that, to you doing so. But there is a place in the rule book which you can present those matters of concern to the Bahamian people. And so I would suggest that you use that context and not this context where we are not debating those issues which you're striving to do. I once again request you to quickly return to relevance, or I am going to enforce the rules of the debate. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. We want answers. We want to see the laws that deal with the countless unregulated workers in the Bahamas. That is not an unreasonable expectation. We have a crime crisis. It is not good for marketing, but it is what it is. There are areas of the judicial system that need reform. We have tabled amendments to the Child Protection Act, which deal with the composition of the juvenile court. But that bill has been sitting there whilst this administration brings legislation to repeal what has already been repealed. It is time to stop fiddling. This week, the Ministry of Agriculture signed an MOU for an annual sanctuary. But the sanctuary for victims of domestic violence remains an unrealized line item in the budget. How long have NGOs that provide sanctuary to victims of violence asked for government assistance in the form of a crown land or crown lease so that they can build shelters for victims of domestic violence? Matters relating to women and children require extensive consultation to determine their worth. But matters which impact our homeless Royal Bahamian potcakes progress swiftly. I love dogs. I have 3 Royal Bahamian potcakes. One of them I called an Eleuthera Terrier because she came from Eleuthera. But their daily reports of women and children who are victims of sex crimes. And rather than help them in a meaningful way, this government fiddles like Nero fiddled when Rome burnt. It is not as if this government is fiddling because they do not know what to do. There is a comprehensive gender-based violence bill drafted by our most foremost experts. It was drafted during the 2012 PLP administration. But this administration, without any real explanation, instructed law reform to abandon that bill and draft a less comprehensive bill that mainly articulates the rights that we already had articulated elsewhere. So said and so done has become a relic from a past PLP administration. The hashtag just results has very much been unearned. It is time to deliver what was promised. We are waiting on the report on the contracts that have been awarded. We are waiting on the monthly COVID dashboard. We are waiting for immigration reform. We are waiting for the citizenship legislation.
Senator Michael Barnett Ellis.
I'm finishing up right now, Madam President.
Senator, I can't understand the reasoning of your debate and what this has to do with the bill that we are currently debating. I need you to be relevant or resume your seat.
Madam, why don't you stand
Right.
and say it?
Senator Ellis,
Thank you, Madam President. I'm wrapping up right now.
30 seconds to resume to relevance, so I'm going to ask you to resume your seat.
We're waiting for the measures to decrease or mitigate the increased cost of living. Why are they still taxing our pads and our tampons? We are still waiting on the return of the RISE program. It is time for this administration to stop fiddling whilst we are struggling and deliver the promises they made to the Bahamas. Madam President, I would like to end by congratulating all of the athletes that participated in the Bahamas Games. Competing in the heat that has become our new normal requires endurance, and it is not for the faint of heart. I would also like to congratulate all the persons that participated in the events at Clifford Park. The armed forces, their youth arms, the Governor General who made the inspection of the guard look effortless, the artists, the dancers. I hope that at some point we can see the routines that were not performed due to time constraints. The religious leaders and the teams that worked behind the scenes. It was equally an exercise of endurance that was not for the faint of heart. Madam President, it is an honor to appear in this place and to work for the people of the Bahamas. May God bless you, and may God bless our independent Bahamas.
Thank you, Senator Barnett Ellis.